Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Nelcast Limited Q4 FY21 and FY21 post-result call hosted by Batlivala & Karani Securities India Private Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Annamalai Jayaraj from Batlivala & Karani Securities. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Malika. On behalf of BNK Securities, welcome to Nelcast Limited post FY21 and FY21 post-result conference call. From the Nelcast management, we have with us today Mr. B. Deepak, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, and Mr. S. Sivakumar, Chief Financial Officer. I will now hand over the call to Mr. Deepak for the opening remarks, to be followed by question and answers. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here on this call regarding our Q4 as well as full year for FY21 results. I'd like to start with just a quick introduction of Nelcast, since we are relatively new to having these earnings calls. So just with a quick introduction, we are a leading producer of ductile iron and grey iron castings in India. We have 3 plants. The first one was started in 1985 in Gudur in Nellore district, Andhra Pradesh, which is about 140 kilometers north of Chennai. The second plant was commissioned in 1996 in Ponneri in Tiruvallur district in Tamil Nadu, 40 kilometers north of Chennai. And the third one, which is the most recent addition to our facilities, was inaugurated and commissioned in 2018 in Pedaparia village in Nellore district, Andhra Pradesh, about 125 kilometers north of Chennai. We as a company, we cater primarily to the tractor industry as well as the medium and heavy commercial vehicle industry. We also cater to the railways and the off-highway industries. Our company was primarily focused on domestic market. However, in the last 7 years, we've had a transformation towards a fairly large growth in exports. In FY14, we were doing about 3 crores per annum of exports. In FY21, we have now crossed 126 crores of exports for the financial year. Our exports are going to North America, to US and Mexico, to Asia, to Thailand as well as Indonesia, to Europe, to Italy, Sweden, Spain, France, Belgium, Hungary, Switzerland, as well as to Australia. So we cover a wide range of the globe. And in exports, we're catering primarily to the similar industries, the medium and heavy commercial vehicles. We're catering to the tractor industry, we're catering to the off-highway industry, and we're also catering to the passenger car industry, primarily in terms of SUVs and pickup trucks. A little bit more about our performance for the financial year of FY21. Our total revenue for the fourth quarter stood at 223 crores, 223.47 crores, in comparison to 131.68 crores in the previous year. So that was a growth of about 75% for the fourth quarter. For the year as a whole, for the full financial year, our total revenue grew from 580.35 crores up to 619.85 crores. So for the full year, we recorded a growth of about 7.8%, which I think is something quite remarkable, considering the fact that we lost the first month and a half of the year due to complete lockdown across the country. Our export sales also had a growth of 12.5%. We grew from 112.26 crores to 126.29 crores. So therefore, we were able to record a growth in exports as well, and that helped us in achieving the overall growth. In terms of the company performance itself and profitability, we were able to record in the fourth quarter an EBITDA of 21.51 crores as opposed to last fourth quarter of 19.08 crores. So we did achieve a growth in the EBITDA number in the fourth quarter. However, because of the first and second quarter challenges due to COVID and the ramp-up that subsequently happened in the third and fourth quarter, for the full year there was a drop in the EBITDA from 61.84 crores in the prior year to 51.27 crores in the current year. In terms of margins, we typically like to measure our EBITDA margins on a per kg basis. So for the full year in 1920, we were able to achieve 11.85 rupees per kg, and in 2021 we were able to achieve 9.20, whereas in the fourth quarter we were able to achieve 10.94 rupees per kg. So this is regarding our performance. I think overall as a company, it has been our focus through COVID to take care of the health of the employees as well as our financial health. So we were able to make quite a good amount of improvement also in the financial health of the company. The debt from 225 crores was able to come down to 215 crores, and the cash and cash equivalents was able to increase from 47.93 crores to 64.98 crores. A large reason for that is that we were able to reduce our inventory that we maintain through several operational improvements. Therefore, our net debt reduced from 177.18 crores down to 149.71 crores. Diving a little bit more into the segment and the sales, in the medium and heavy commercial vehicles, our sales breakup was they contributed 33% of our overall turnover, and as against 37% in the year prior. So there was a small decline not only in our contribution but in the overall number. There was a decline of approximately 3 to 4% in our sales to heavy commercial vehicles, which is a positive sign, I would say, considering the entire industry degrew much more substantially by more than 10%. In the tractor segment, we had a substantial amount of growth. As a contribution to us, it was at 31.73% in the prior year, whereas in the current year it reached 37.61%. So there was a growth of about 28% in the tractor segment, which is slightly higher than the 26% recorded by the industry. Our exports was another positive sign. I've already touched upon it. We grew from 112.26 crores to 126.29 crores. The other segments, such as railways, there was a small degrowth in railways, where in the previous year it was 6.84%, and in the current year it was 3.83%. Similar, off-highway had a small growth from 2.95% to 3.18%. So overall, I think we could see that we largely followed the industry, but we outperformed the industry marginally. I'll touch upon a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons why we were able to do better than the industry on the heavy commercial vehicle space is because of the introduction of the BS6 vehicles, as well as the growth in the tipper segment. So the heavy duty tippers were segments where we have a lot of new products, very high market shares, and this is a segment that grew fairly well in the past year because of the infrastructure push that happened towards the end of the year, especially in Q3 and Q4. So we saw good growth coming from the products that are used in the tipper segment, and therefore that helped drive our commercial vehicle growth. Tractors overall had been strong post the lockdown, and it is anticipated to remain strong with the forecast of the monsoon this year to remain normal, as well as generally good conditions in the rural areas for the agricultural segment. And exports, we expect to continue to see growth, and we expect to continue to see strong growth in the exports over the next 3 years. We are seeing overall a few different things that will drive our exports growth. One is new products. We have a lot of new products in the export space that we will be ramping up. In addition to that, on the export space, we were seeing also the markets there are growing substantially, especially if we look at the North America and the Class 8 trucks. There's been a substantial growth, substantial order intake over the last 12 months. And we anticipate that this will continue to fuel growth in the North American market, in addition to all the new products that we will be launching over the next 2 years. So with that, I would like to conclude by saying that we are anticipating, I think that over the next 2 to 3 years will be a very, very good time in terms of growth for the company. we're anticipating that we would expect to see strong growth over the next 2 to 3 years. And we have all the investments in the new plant that will help us cater to this growth. With that, I would like to hand it over to the operator of the call for any question and answers that anybody might have to either myself or my colleague, Mr. Shivkumar, who is the CFO.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sahil Sangvi from Monarch Network. Please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
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 Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, first of all, for conducting this conference call, and congratulations for the operational achievements that the company has achieved. So first of all, could you just give me some idea on the capacity on each of these plants and what is the utilization currently?
Sure. So overall, I think the theoretical capacity that we have for the plant is about 160,000 tons. And currently, prior to, I would say, the second wave of COVID, we were operating at something around, we did around 20,000 tons in the previous quarter, I think, to be more specific.
Okay. Would you be able to give me the split over the three plants, sir? Capacity-wise?
I don't have that information right now. We'd certainly be able to share that information.
Okay.
The exact split right at the moment, if I was to break it up, I can share that with you right now. So we have about 60,000 tons capacity at our plant in Gudur.
Okay.
40,000 at our plant in Poneri.
Okay.
And 60,000 at our plant in Pedaparia.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that we are approximately at about 50% utilization before COVID? Aggregate basis?
Yes. Right. So we are at, the second phase, which was 42,000 tons out of the new plant, was commissioned only in the month of September of 2020. So, if we were to go back to the previous quarter, yes, it would be fair to say that we're at 50% capacity utilization. But that being said, the new plant is only 6 months old, so the capacity does take a little bit of time to get ramped up. And we have several new products that are under development. And one of the key features of the new investment that we have in the new plant is our ability to make much more complex and much larger parts, which would have better realizations as well.
Okay. Got it, sir. So my second question is regarding the demand from HCVs and tractor, and I'm completely asking about the domestic demand. So how is that working out right now as we speak? Because, I understand there's a lot of states which are gradually lifting the lockdown, but the supply chains have been affected, and a lot of, tractor might be still stable, but what's the scenario on the commercial vehicle front? So you can give us both. Yeah.
Sure. So what we're seeing a small impact on the tractor segment as well. We are seeing an impact there. And a lot of that does have to do with the supply chains that are there. In terms of the commercial vehicle front, I would say there's a fairly significant demand. I would say, if, compared to a few months ago, the industry is probably operating at something around 50% or so. And the large reason for that is, I think, both the demand that's a little bit slow because of the lockdowns that are there. The fact that many of the dealers are also closed and don't have their showrooms open for taking deliveries. And I think, but the forecast that we're hearing from these, in spite of the current numbers that we're seeing, is actually extremely positive, especially going into the construction segment, right? Construction and mining segment, where the tippers are used. We're actually hearing extremely positive forecasts coming out of the industry, because they do anticipate that the budget that just passed, the allocations that was made towards infrastructure, will certainly drive growth, post these lockdowns, and hopefully, going past the second wave. without there being a third wave.
Okay. Got it, sir. And would you be able to share the volume numbers, sir, for FY21 and Q4?
So in terms of tonnage?
Yes.
Yeah, so our sales quantity in FY21 Q4 was 19,857 tons. And for the full year, it was 58,550 tons.
Okay. And this would be full year versus FY20, how much would it be?
FY20 full year was 54,946 tons.
Okay. Got it, sir. And my last question, sir, would be what more can we do, sir, on the cost front? Because I see a good growth on the revenue front, sir, in the numbers in Q4 also. But can we still improve our cost structure, sir, when I compare it to some of the other competitors we have in the casting industry? So do we have any plans on that front, and what more can we do when it comes to power and fuel cost or the other expenses or the RM cost?
So I think if you look at the cost front, right, and if we boil down to the bottom line, the two largest expenses that are there are the first is in terms of the raw material cost. So raw material cost is actually a function of the open market. We are buying steel scrap, which is our primary raw material. So we have a mechanism for passing on increases or decreases to our customers. There's typically a small lag to it of about a quarter. So when there is a steep increase in material costs like we have seen in the last 6 months, there's usually about a 1 quarter or 2 quarter shock that we have to absorb, a 1 quarter shock that we absorb and before we pass it on. Of course, we've seen that, being a continuous increase that we've seen in Q3 as well as Q4. So that is on the front of the raw material cost. It is a pass-through mechanism, albeit with a slight lag. Similarly, when material costs are coming down, the reduction is also passed on with a slight lag. So net, we hope that it all balances out. Now, the other area is the power and fuel cost. So we are working on that continuously in terms of, and the more we optimize our output and the higher the output that we get, this cost even is a mix of both variable and fixed. This cost will keep coming down as we start ramping up our new facilities as well. In addition to that, there's also things that we are working on in terms of reducing the cost per unit at which we are purchasing, which includes certain investments in renewable energy as well.
Okay. Got it. So how much spending would that be, sir? Is it a large chunk?
No, it would not be it's not a large chunk. We are looking at making it would be a group captive investment that we are making.
Got it, sir. Thank you for your answer, sir. I'll come back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Saket Kapoor from Kapoor & Company. Please go ahead.
Yeah, namaskar, sir, and thank you for the opportunity. Sir, firstly, as you Deepak ji, you have informed that it is 10 rupees 94 paisa per kilo. That is what the key figure for us for the casting business. So, sir, going forward, as the OEMs are providing you a schedule for a quarter, minimum definitely for a quarter, what are the likely realizations, sir, going forward, sir, and what is the outlook for the way forward?
So I think the realizations is a little bit hard to actually arrive at the forecast because of the raw material cost, right? So again, depends on how that lag factor works out. We would hope, and the target that we are working towards is to be at a number that's better than 1094. So we want to definitely work on continuing to improve this. As our capacity utilizations improve, as some of the new products come in, as well as the exports continue to grow, we anticipate that we should be able to reach a number that is better than 12, and we are targeting to try to get to around 14, 15, right, over the next maybe 3-4 years. That's the target that we are working towards. But in the short term, it's a little bit harder to project, primarily because of the variations that happen in raw material prices and the lag that's there. And particularly over the last 6 months, we've seen a fairly substantial fluctuation in raw material prices, and fluctuation only going upwards, actually, to be fair. So therefore, I think it's a little bit hard to assume that. In terms of the growth, what we are seeing in terms of top line over the next year, we do expect to see growth. We do expect to see growth in the double digits, and driven by the fact that we expect that tractor industry will have a fairly good year this year. We do anticipate that the commercial vehicle industry, more specifically on the construction mining segment for tippers, will do well, and that's an area where we have a fairly substantial presence in terms of the products that we have and the market shares that we have. And the third thing is that growth in exports. We expect to continue to see growth in exports, and we would hope that the current numbers, what we are seeing from the export markets, will continue. Overall, I think as a blended number, we expect to see a fairly good amount of growth, definitely in the double digits.
So what have been the export component percentage mix for on the top line for this year? And if you could give,
so for this year, the exports percentage worked out to 21%.
And for FY20, sir, how much it was? I wanted to know the growth.
For FY20, it was about 19.8%.
Okay. So, sir, going forward for this year, what kind of growth in export market can we exit the year with?
So, on a ballpark number, I think the number that we would hope to see, we would expect to see in terms of exports is certainly greater than a 20% growth. I think that's what we anticipate in the current year. It could be more than that, but certainly we believe that with the current market conditions, that's the number. Keeping in mind that obviously things, this is a cyclical industry, and there are obviously risk factors that are involved in trying to project numbers.
So just on the cyclical front only, sir, yesterday Mahindra did came up with a guidance for the tractor numbers that were in the single digits. And sir, our dependence on the tractor industry is on the higher side. So what gives you the confidence that tractors will continue to grow going forward also, sir? And that is the question.
So I think tractors, certainly, I think last year was an unexpectedly strong year, given what happened with COVID, right? I think the forecast for last year was that it was going to be an excellent year. And primarily that was driven based on availability of water after two, and we've now had two continuous, good monsoons or normal monsoons. There's a forecast for another normal monsoon. My understanding also was water levels at all reservoirs are at pretty good levels. In addition to that, I think the minimum support prices that are in the industry, from what I'm told, are favorable. And therefore, that was these were some of the tailwinds we were seeing in the tractor industry last year. And we could see that in spite of having a month and a half lockdown, they still managed to grow about 26% for the full year. So given such a large growth last year, we're still expecting growth this year, but we don't expect that it will be a double-digit growth, right? We think perhaps it will be 8% growth or something like that, perhaps along the lines of what Mahindra has also projected and forecasted. But we have to remember that the base completely changed last year when there was such a substantial amount of growth that happened. So that's, I think, one of the things that we feel the tractor industry is good. In the other part of the tractor industry, there's also new products that we are developing in the tractor industry for our existing customers as they launch more new models, which I think will help them also gain some market share.
So now on the expanded capacity of 1,60,000, we did around 80,000 for FY21, sir, or lower than that?
No, our number for FY21, what we did was actually 58,550 was the full year number, considering the lockdowns. For the quarter 4, we did 19,857.
Okay. So depending upon, it is very uncertain, sir, right now to give a guide. I'm going to give a perspective about what the tonnage would be. But going by the preparation which you have done and the export segment and the new product introduction which you have articulated earlier, what should the likely be exiting the next year, sir? On 59,000 average, what should be the bare minimum that we are looking, sir, to exit the next financial year?
It's a very difficult
let me answer
question to answer given the current scenario. Yes,
tonnage also purely based on the product mix, Kapur. Okay, so it will vary month to month depending on the product mix. So we'll not be able to exactly assume what would be the figure. Okay. Anyway, we'll update you. After 6 months, we'll see how it goes.
Right, sir. And the last point on the working capital requirement, sir. We have seen the trade receivables moving up significantly. And what would be our current working capital requirement on the peak capacity level? What should be that? And what is our receivable day cycle? If you could elaborate on the same, sir.
Sure. So I think there's a couple of things, right? So when you talked about the receivables. So in fact, part of the reason the receivables have gone up is if you actually compare the receivables over the full year period, right? So if you compare it over the full year period, certainly it looks like the days of receivables have gone up. But if you actually consider the fact that the bulk of the sales, right? So if you look at it in terms of Q4, 220 crores plus of sales happened just in Q4, so much more than a third. And if we in that also if we compare, March was perhaps the best month of the year. So therefore, it's actually not an increase in terms of the number of days that we have seen actually, even though it looks that way when you compare, the full year figure to what you see. The second part of it is also in exports. Right, we've seen a substantial amount of export growth, and the realization in exports is a longer period of time. So overall, I think as a blended number, I think what we anticipate to see is something around the 70 to 75 day kind of mark, and we believe that we're doing slightly better than that.
Okay, and sir, since we have a lockdown in the country, so that has affected the production. Definitely affected the production for the month of May, and April was a normal month, sir. If you could give us the production outlook for April, May.
So I don't believe I'm permitted to share with you April and May, but I can just give you a rough idea of the impact. Right, there's definitely been an impact in the month of April, and certainly a slightly bigger impact in the month of May. And due to various COVID restrictions, due to customers being closed due to COVID restrictions, other supply chain disruptions that are there, as well as the health of our own employees as well, which is creating an issue of absenteeism and manpower availability. So there's definitely an impact. We do believe that that this impact hopefully will not continue beyond June. That's our hope. But we do not know how this virus works, even though we are nearly a year and a half beyond the point where we first discovered it. So I think we'll have to wait and watch and see how the government responds, as well as how the economy responds.
And going forward, sir, do we look at the continuity of these investor conference, or is it a one-off annual event, sir, that we investors and analysts tracking the company? So
I think it's our intention to be better connected to the investor community, and this quarterly call is something that we would like to continue every quarter. In fact, this is a feedback that we've received from a couple of the people who have already invested in us, and they've requested that this is something that they value, and therefore it's something that we intend to continue.
We look for the continuity, sir. That is more important. And I think, sir, the press release and the opening note part also, sir, if that could be articulated with the result, giving the business environment and the tonnage part, which are the normal FAQs from investors, that would be really helpful. And we look forward for the continuity. Lastly, sir, what are the current year maturities, sir, for this year, sir? How much is the debt that is going to be paid, and the next year also for FY23?
So in terms of long-term debt, Shiva will give the exact number. I believe it's about 30 crores that will of debt repayment that we will do in the current year.
Yeah.
And the total outstanding term loan is 141.
So 30 crores is the maturity?
31st March.
Come again, sir?
As on 31st March, the long-term debt is 141 crores, and working capital is about 76 crores. So total debt of 214 crores, sir.
Right, sir. What is the maturity?
Out of the 141, the repayment portion for the current year is approximately.
Currently, it is about 33 crores we have to repay.
33 crores.
21-22 to 33 crores.
21 to 30, and for 23-24, when the next financial year,
it will be another 35 crores.
Another 35. Okay, sir. And the cost of funds currently, what is the blended cost of fund, and any ratings or changes that will lead to lower? Are we anticipating that going forward with the annual numbers now?
As of now, the rating, there is no change in the rating, so we have to wait and see.
Right, sir. And what is the cost of funds, sir? The blended cost of funds?
Cost of funds depends upon the market now because we do mix of long-term working capital, short-term working capital.
Yes, that is what I wanted to know. What is the current cost of fund for us?
It will be about 8.5%.
Including both working capital and long-term blended.
Average rate.
Average. Yeah. Thanks. And the subsidiary companies, sir, investment in the subsidiary, sir, any update on that, sir? 40-45 crore, I think, is the investment there in that business. How are we going to deal with it, sir?
So I think.
Yes, sir, you can answer.
Yeah. So at present, we're not looking at making any further investment in the company. We're looking at. So the purpose of the company was set up was to evaluate the possible setting up of a thermal power plant in Tamil Nadu. I think at the moment that is not a viable option. We're evaluating all other options, including solar and as well as other things. But at the moment, we're envisaging any further investment, and we will also evaluate if the right opportunity comes along to dispose of the asset. There is in excess of 400 acres of land that is available in the company. So there is an asset in the company as well that we will either utilize it appropriately or try to get some value out of it.
Monetization can also happen. That is what you can.
Yes.
Okay. And that is in Nelcast or in the subsidiary, sir?
That's in the subsidiary.
And our total investment in the subsidiary as on 31st March?
Shiva, you have the number?
Yeah, it's about 40 crores.
40 crores. Right, sir. We hope for continuity and all the best to the team, sir. Shiva sir, Deepak sir, thank you for the opportunity, sir. And all the best, sir. Stay safe, sir. That is our wish.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Praveen Kumar, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Congratulations, sir, for presenting a good set of numbers, that too in this challenging environment. My most of the questions are answered. I have only one question that I'm interested to know how much is the power consumption for all these plants, and how do you meet these requirements, and what is the rationale for going up for renewable power plant?
Okay. So I think, Shiva, if you can would you like to know it in terms of number of units or total cost that we are?
Total megawatt consumption and per unit cost, how much it is at present, and how do you envisage what should it be? And do you produce currently any captive production is there?
Yeah.
And what are the challenges basically for power consumption?
Sure.
Yeah,
I think in terms of Shiva, you can talk about number of units if you want approximately.
Yeah, roughly number of units for all the plants put together, it is about 80 to 90 lakhs. Okay, we have 3 plants. Two is in Andhra Pradesh and one is in Tamil Nadu. For Tamil Nadu, we have group captive power. Mostly we tied up with the long-term windmill and then solar. Okay, about 80 to 90% we made through windmill. Balance we draw from the board. Whereas in Andhra Pradesh, currently we draw entire power only from the board. Okay, we have planned to go for windmill through group captive. It means we will not invest directly. We will go for group captive, which is advantage, which is the currently good packaging model in the industry. So maybe in the next 1 year, we'll go for the windmill for Andhra Pradesh plant. Otherwise, we don't have any issues in the power. It means we are all able to meet through board, all the power. There is no any shortage in the both states.
Okay. So the power consumption and cost is at optimum level.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mukesh Saraf from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. So you answered actually most of the questions that I had on the company. So I have now a question on the CV cycle itself, because obviously MHCV cycle impacts, we have a good exposure there. So you did allude that, this year is expected to be good. But we are also seeing OEMs take, second plant shutdown now. Ashok Leyland said that even in June they'll be shut for most of the time. So do you kind of see that there is a very high channel inventory or plant inventory already in the system, and hence that way the demand can be low for, say, some of the products that we supply?
So I think it's easy to talk, I think, broadly about the CV industry, but the way I think that we look at it is in few different buckets, right? So if you look at the last year and we break it down into multiple buckets for the MNHCV, so the ICV segment last year did fairly well, primarily driven by e-commerce, right? So we saw, I think, last year the ICV segment numbers were looking fairly good. We saw probably the multi-axle vehicle numbers, which I primarily use for haulage segment. We saw the haulage segment numbers look fairly bad, and I think we saw towards especially the second half of the year, the number for the tipper and the other construction mining vehicles, that number was doing fairly well. I think this is what we saw over the last year, especially the last 6 months. Going forward, we think it will be somewhat similar, especially we think because of the infrastructure spend. If the government does go forward with the spend as it has been envisaged, we do expect that the tipper segment will do fairly well. The multi-axle vehicle segment for haulage is a function of the demand of the vehicles, right? So unless there is a good amount of demand for movement of goods, that segment is not going to do well. And I believe, in my view, for that segment to recover, it will take a little bit longer time because, one, the demand has to come up, which it still has not yet come back to the levels that was there, prior to the axle load norms in 2018, which just introduced a glut of supply into that segment by increasing the tonnage carrying capacity, right? So I believe the haulage vehicles and the multi-axle vehicle demand is still a little bit away because we'll only start to see that as freight rates start to increase. So I believe that segment, which typically accounts for maybe more of the numbers, might be a little bit slower, but I think the overall positivity that we have is towards the tipper segment that's there and used in construction and mining. So I think that segment, we're still hearing positive things.
Sure.
But like you said, there's a fairly severe disruption in terms of production that happened in the month of May, and certainly the forecast for the month of June is also quite severe in terms of the number of working days that are being planned at the OEMs.
Right. So it is not a function of inventory as such, it's just a function of supply chain.
I believe so. I do not believe
shutdowns.
Yeah, I do not believe that inventories are at extremely high levels, at least not to my knowledge.
Sure.
But certainly, I mean, when we consider inventories, we can't just talk about sheer numbers. We have to talk about perhaps days of inventory, right? So if the overall numbers are less, then even a fewer quantity of vehicles might represent a greater number of days of inventory, right? So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, understood. So basically, tippers could be about, say, 30% of overall MHCV, so that should do well. And the remaining, say, 60-70%, we are still kind of yet to get a kind of a sense on.
Right, and for us as a company with the products that we have, as well as the tipper in itself has a much greater percentage of castings that go into it, and our market share there is substantially higher. So I think that's something that will aid us in that.
Sure, yes, that makes sense. Thank you. That was the only question I had.
Thanks, Mukesh.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Gandhi from KIFS Trade Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for the taking question. I just wish to know when you plan this third unit, which is just commissioned in September, when do you see optimum capacity coming, and when do you see, because of the complex product which you are planning, it can start earning 14-15 best case margin per kg which you are expecting? Can it be happening in 2 years' time?
So,
I think there's some more time to work for.
So I believe, realistically, I think for us to really get to an optimum number, we are probably 2 years away from really, being able to fully optimize it, have all the products developed. But that being said, I think we should start getting close to that perhaps over the next 3 quarters to a year. I think we will, because we have a lot of new products that are under development that are these type of products that I mentioned that are unique to our ability to manufacture these. And certainly we expect that most of these products will go into production over the next 6 to 9 months. So certainly we'll see improvement, and then we'll have to work on our own optimizations of the new plant once the product mix there is up and running. So we believe that I think a 2-year period is probably when we will really start to see the best of what we can achieve.
how are the realizations differ for the this complex product? Are they significantly different than the realization what you have? Margin, I understand per kg is 3-4 rupees difference.
Yeah. So realizations are better, and certainly both for exports as well as for these complex products, realizations are, maybe 5-10% better than what we might have on a typical domestic product.
Continuing the previously asked question, can you tell me precisely what is the cost per unit for power for Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh separately or blended, whichever way you are comfortable?
Per unit cost, huh?
So cost per unit for the power.
So in Tamil Nadu, it's about 6.5 rupees per unit. Whereas in Andhra Pradesh, about 50 paise less, about 6 rupees per unit.
Okay. And the last question is this 400-acre land which is lying in a subsidiary. Can you use the same for the renewable energy like solar or wind development?
We are evaluating that. We are evaluating all options for that, including specifically also we're evaluating solar investment there.
Okay. And what is the current cost of buying land over there? If you propose to buy, say, another 100 or 200 acres?
No, a lot of changes in the market price. Really, we don't know because we didn't do for last 2-3 years. We have not made any purchase, no? So we're not sure about it.
Okay, so 2-3 years back, what was the last purchase, right?
We purchased about. Actually, we don't remember. Okay, maybe we'll address it later.
Is this a 45 crore investment in subsidiary?
No, actually 38.6 crore is the investment. 38.60 crore is the investment. So roughly 400 acres. So it's just about 10 lakhs per acre. The average cost, what we are having, 10 lakhs per acre.
But I think recent price is more than 2-3 times of this, right?
See, that's what current market price, we have no idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't want to speculate on the current market price because it...
No, I'm not saying speculation. I'm just looking from the return perspective when you put a solar plant or something. From that perspective, what is the cost I'm trying to... I'm not trying to work out the replacement cost of the land. I was just trying to see where the arithmetic will fit in.
Sure.
When it makes viable. Anyway, maybe once you freeze the plan, please share these details.
Sure.
Thank you very much and all the best. Sorry, one last question. Is it? I think in all probability you can be close to 1,000 crore in FY24 revenue.
We hope we'll do it sooner than that, and we'll call that a positive surprise.
Okay. All the best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saket Kapoor from Kapoor & Company. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Thank you for the opportunity again, sir. For the railway front, sir, what are the inroads made and what portion of our current year revenue is attributable to the railway?
Sure. So railways, if we look at it in the previous year, right? So the year that we just completed represented 4% of our revenue. So railway, there are primarily two products that we contribute to the railways. One product goes to the metro rails, which are the base plates on which the track systems are fastened. And we have been the largest provider of this all across the country since the days of phase 1 of the Delhi Metro. Right, so that is one of the products. So that is a project-based type of a product that's there. So whenever there's a new metro that's getting launched, there's typically a tendering process that is done by our customer, right? We're not directly on the tenders. Our customer, which is Waslow, is the one who applies on the tender, and once they win it, we supply the base plates to them, and they supply the entire system, right, which includes the clamps as well as the fastening anchor bolts and all of that. So as more and more metro rails come up, so that part of the business depends on the projects that are executed for the metro rails. So we've seen in the past few years, we've seen actually quite a good amount of growth in terms of the number of metros coming up, and therefore we've seen some advantage of that. Of course, in the last year, due to COVID, that number had come down. We think that this year will be a fairly good year because I think a lot of those projects are taking off again. But it's hard for us to project because one, it depends on the different projects and how they are in terms of their timeline. Also depends on whether our customer who supplies the complete system wins the order or not. So it's a little bit difficult to project, but for the previous year, the total contribution of railways was about 4%. The other product that we supply is also the brake discs that are being used on all the Rajdhani and Shatabdi trains. So basically what they call the LHB coaches, which is now the predominant coach manufacturing that is happening all across the country. Right. So depending on how much ICF and RCF manufacture in terms of their coaches, our demand will be dependent on that.
Sir, as we see in the manufacturing segment, there are the fixed costs and the variable costs, and at an capacity utilization level, the fixed costs are just frozen, and then comes the variable cost part after a certain utilization level. So, sir, for our the way our industry works and our plants are designed, what is that point for our utilization levels from where the fixed costs are would be frozen and the incremental EBITDA would be flowing down. So just wanted to understand that math.
So what if you look at it, right, the overall selling price cost structure, maybe 45% or so of our costs are coming roughly out of raw materials, right? It varies obviously. If you look at the last couple of years, it could be any number between, let's say, 40 to 48%, depending on how the raw material price movement is. So this portion of it is completely variable, right? Because if you're not producing parts or then you don't really need to buy the raw material. So it is almost entirely a variable cost. The second part, which is the next biggest expense that is coming from the power cost, right? So the power cost, what we are seeing has both a fixed as well as a variable component that is attached to it, right? So there's a fixed component related to the fact that there's a certain amount of maximum demand charges that you need to pay, or certain amount of commitments that you have to take power, and the variable costs are largely for the per unit consumption. So even though it's purely a variable cost, the per unit consumption, the more we produce, the less number of units we consume per ton, just because of efficiencies, right? And this, as we go forward, as we ramp up our production, certainly we will also see our number of units being consumed per ton will also start to come down, and that's what we are expecting and we hope to see. But other than that, many of the other costs, like then we have some other costs that are related to just other manufacturing expenses, which are typically contract work, right? It might be machining, it might be some other grinding work, things that are outsourced. So this is almost entirely a variable cost. So if we look at our overall cost structure, I believe about 75% of our costs are entirely variable. So this, one of the benefits I believe that this does for us is even at fairly low numbers, we can still be reasonably profitable, even if our on an EBITDA basis, even if the other numbers are low, right? So the primary fixed cost that's there that we has to do with depreciation, interest, as well as employee expenses, right, in terms of salaries. So I think these largely, these are the three fixed costs, and other than this, most of the costs are largely variable.
Right. And so since the raw material dependence is totally on the scrap, sir, so over a period of time, sir, how has been the availability of the raw materials and the price trends? I think so, sir, with the increase in the steel prices, that must have been reflected on the scrap also. So going forward, sir, what is our strategy since we are currently at...
Mr. Kapoor, so this is the conference operator. There's a disturbance coming from your line. Request you to mute your line after your question, sir.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. I got your point. Sir, I was coming to the raw material part. As we have seen that over a period of time with the increase in steel prices, the raw materials for scrap also must have gone up in variation to that. And since we are currently at only 50% of our utilization levels, so going forward, what is the strategy regarding the sourcing of raw material, the availability and the pricing? And any steps we are taking for backward integration going forward when our utilization levels would be much higher than what currently they are?
Yeah. So I think, see, largely majority of what we use is steel scrap, right? So this is typically, steel that's already been punched and used once, and then it gets bundled and sent to us, and we remelt the steel. So a backward integration is not really an option that we have from that angle, right? There's a small percentage of pig iron that we use, but I think, to be honest, it doesn't make sense for us to look at backward integrating. For the purpose of backward integration, it doesn't make sense for us to look at doing that. In terms of availability of scrap, there's largely never been any problem of availability. I think it's only a question of price. And I think as we grow, I think volume will certainly help us have better negotiating power in terms of purchasing. But I don't see an issue of availability. And certainly price, with the kind of a pass-through mechanism that we have for our customers, albeit with a minor lag. I don't anticipate that to be at raw materials as a challenge as we grow.
Has this second wave not hit the country and the industry in this time? What was we emphasizing for this year, sir? I mean, you must have worked for the business plans for the current financial year. So if you could give us some understanding on the same, sir.
So I think right now, with the current situation that's there, and I think overall there is some degree of positivity, I think, around the second wave, that post the second wave, that there will be some sort of bounce back. Besides that, I think it looks like there is some improvement in terms of states getting the second wave under control, and might start easing up perhaps by late June or July. So I don't think we're while we think it'll have an impact on Q1 and to some degree on the whole year, I think the overall our estimation, which was to do better than a double-digit growth in the current year, I think we still believe that is very realistic, and that is something that we believe we can achieve.
On a double-digit growth on the base of 59,000. Yeah, I got your point. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hitesh Bhargava. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, can you please help us with our client concentration and how is our revenue coming in from key clients? And also help us with what is the share of business with one of our key clients? That's my first question, sir.
Okay. So if I was to take, let's say you'd like to say, let's say the top 3 clients. Would you like me to look at it from that point of view?
Yes, sir. Top 3 or top 5, anything, whichever is comfortable.
Okay. So the top, I'm just pulling up the data. Please give me 1 second.
Sorry, shall I share, sir?
So the top 5 clients that we have account for about 48% of our sales last year.
Okay. And can you help us with share of business with these clients?
So share of business is slightly complicated because they do out of their entire range of castings. They might have certain parts that might be too small for our product range, or something that we may not do as a matter of interest. So it's a slightly more complicated number to answer. But I think in some cases, in terms of our largest customer is CAFE. And in terms of the heavy casting requirement, I believe that their spend from us is our share for the heavy casting requirements is probably in excess of 30%.
Okay. Okay. Sir, can you also help us with the product price market share?
I think that's actually very, very hard for us to evaluate. I think because there's just so many different types of products and not everything is the same. So it's I don't believe that that's information that we have, or it's information that we'll be able to share because of how fairly fragmented it is.
Okay. Sir, can you also, can you talk about on export markets, like what is the long-term target in export, and also like in the recent times there is also going on with considering China is a leader in casting segment, and did you see any growth in our market share after this pro-China movement which happened over the last 1 year or so, and our exports long-term target?
So I think there's two things. One, I think exports is something that we've been focused on, as I said in my opening remarks. We were at sub 3 crores if we go back to FY14, right? So we from there we've come to about 126 crores now. We believe that there's still substantial growth in the export segment. We believe that we've gotten opportunities with several customers and we've proven ourselves. And we have also several new businesses that have already been awarded to us. But the official business in some of these cases starts perhaps as late as late 2022 or early 2023. So we've got businesses that have already been awarded to us that are like that. So given that, I think our goal that we would like to work towards certainly is over the next 3 years will be to do better than 50% growth in exports. And that's something that I believe is very realistic and very possible. And it's something that we believe, at least with the current orders that we have, is something that we will definitely achieve. Now, we're obviously trying to do even better than that, and we hope that we will be able to do that. The next part you asked about was regarding China. So in a lot of the businesses parts that we do for export, we have actually very rarely competed with the Chinese company. I would say a reason for that, and this is purely my opinion, is the level of complexity of the products that we serve. I think that our capabilities and complexities of products that we serve is something that makes us probably less likely to compete with the Chinese supplier because we're not in this low value mass market high volume kind of work that we're doing. We're doing a lot more of that medium volume type of work where there is a lot more product complexity that's there. So we've found, at least it's been very rare. I'm only aware of perhaps 1 or 2 occasions where we've actually had to compete with a Chinese supplier. But I think there's definitely looking at right now the post-pandemic situation and the growth that's happening in the Western markets as they exit the lockdowns and the economy continues to bounce back. We anticipate that definitely there is going to be constraints in terms of capacity that are there domestically, whether we talk about North America or Europe, and that will also give us some further opportunities coming up in the next year to come or so.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, can you help us understand what are the things which the company did in last 1 year or so to become more fitter or leaner, considering like this is a time when many of the companies across India have worked on reducing their break-even levels. So can you just talk about how the break-even levels have shifted in last 1 year or so? And considering that we have we have added new capacity and the fixed expenses in that will be higher. So how do you deal with this break-even levels currently?
Yeah. So, like I said, I think one of the things structurally for us as a company and to some degree for the industry as a whole is that because of the large percentage of variable cost that's there in our cost structure, I think our break even is we are able to manage with a much lower break even than perhaps maybe some of the other industries which might be substantially more capital intensive and people intensive, right? So I think this is something that we have done. I think over the last year we've really taken not just the last year, but I would say actually the last 2 years we've taken a real big focus in terms of cost and managing and micromanaging each cost. And I think that's something that if you look at, especially in the previous year financial results and even last year's numbers, I think it's certainly evident in how that compares with the previous year, that we've been able to largely protect EBITDA margins in spite of a fairly substantial drop that happened in the CV industry over the last couple of years, which obviously is a key part of our sales portfolio. So I think overall, this is something we've been working on. We have a special program that we do. We review with the plants every month in terms of costs. And it's something that I think has given us quite good results over the last 2 years. And we we hope that will continue. But certainly, as we ramp up capacity in our new plant, as the new products that are being developed there reach maturity and complete the ramp up, we expect that we'll be much better at absorbing the fixed costs that are there.
Okay, sir. One last question from my end. What is the capex planned for FY22?
So for FY22, we're looking at a capex that's just a little bit over our depreciation value. So we're looking at a capex that's between 30 to 35 crores, and this will be for maintenance capex as well as addition of some equipment as well as modernization of some lines. So this is something that what we expect approximately where the capex will be.
Thank you. That's it from my end.
Thank you. Due to time constraint, we'll be taking one last question, which is from the line of Anand. Please go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for taking my question, and congrats on a good set of numbers, sir. I just have a short question. You were talking about shifting the power source from grid to windmill. What kind of savings in power cost can we see? Like currently it's 13%. Can it go down to say 11%, or will it be that substantial?
So I believe what we're looking at, it would not encompass the entire power that we are currently consuming. It would only encompass a percentage of that, right? So perhaps what we are looking at would only cover about maybe 30% or so of the power that we are utilizing in our plants in AP. So it would not look at 100%. That's in terms of what we're working on. So that's one. So it would not substantially impact the unit cost. There is a reduction. The exact details of the reduction, I believe, cannot be shared because we have a non-disclosure agreement with our partner with whom we are working on this group captive. But that being said, it should be a fairly good reduction. So that is, I would say, very comparable to market rates for the wind.
Oh, okay. Is there any timeline, sir, by when we can realize these benefits? Like say.
So we've signed an agreement with them, but it's currently in process and it's under regulatory approvals. So once the regulatory approvals are completed, which we do not have a timeline on, primarily because of the current COVID situation and some of the offices of the government not operating, because of that, some of the staff not being there. So we do not have an exact timeline, but we hope it can happen at the earliest.
Okay. So just a last question. In the current year FY21, did we have any content increase due to BS6 transition? Like what percentage of growth that we had this year would be due to that?
Yeah, so I think there was. There are a few products that we are making that are used on BS6 vehicles that were not there on BS4 vehicles. And so there is definitely an increase in our content per vehicle that has come as a result of the BS6 introduction.
Apart from the new product introduction, any value enhancement in the existing product portfolio? I just want to understand, like, can we carry forward more than industry growth? How much of the growth can be more than industry growth? Yeah. Which is generally from new products. I just want to eliminate this.
Yeah. So it's a very hard thing to do, primarily because the casting requirement per vehicle, depending on the size of the vehicle, depending on the type of vehicle, right? Whether it's a multi-axle vehicle or whether it's a tipper, these are very different vehicles, and the casting requirement per vehicle is also very different. So as a result of that, it's very, very, I would say, difficult to say, to directly compare it to industry growth. But I think that being said, I think definitely I would think that we should be able to do better than that. Certainly, if the tipper segment does better than the overall industry, then we will also definitely do better than the overall industry as well. So that is one thing, and otherwise also some of the BS6 products will also help us do better than what the industry might do.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. That was very helpful, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Annamalai Jayaraj from Batlivala and Karani Securities for closing comments.
We thank all the participants. We thank Nelcos management for taking time out for the call. Have a good day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Batlivala and Karani Securities, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.